Now, Donald Trump, he's been constantly barking about the 2020 election being stolen from him, stolen. But he's not the only person who's perpetuating this big lie. It takes more than just rhetoric, it takes some cash. So Koch Industries has spent over $1 million in campaign donations to House and Senate candidates who support this big lie and voted against certifying the election results in 2020. Of course, that's happening, so let's get to some details here. So Koch, which is controlled by multi-billionaire Charles Koch, boasts a corporate PAC that has donated $607,000 to the campaigns or leadership PACs of 52 election deniers since January of 2021. That makes Koch's PAC the top corporate funder of members who oppose the election results. That's according to Open Secrets. In addition to that, the super PAC Americans for Prosperity Action, to which Koch Industries has given over $6 million since January of that same year, they've backed some election deniers with advertising and other communications of support, as well as a few candidates Donald Trump has endorsed who tried to help him overturn the 2020 election or raise doubts about the final results. Now, these Koch-funded super PAC AFP Action, they claimed that after the January 6th riots and the attack and the insurrectionists to run upon the Capitol, that they were gonna consider some actions of the members of Congress leading up to January 6th before making any more future donations. Hey bro, we're gonna stop this. We understand what the problem is. We saw what it was. We're gonna chill with that. Let's see, lawmakers' actions leading up to and during last week's insurrection will weigh heavy in our evaluation of future support. And we will continue to look for ways to support those policymakers who reject the politics of division and work together to move our country forward because they're true patriots. Here's the non-surprising part about this whole thing, you guys. It doesn't appear that they're living up to that promise. And it can only be due to their lobbying support of oil and gas industries. Another They've spent $12.2 million last year on lobbying, which is more than any other oil or gas company spent since 2021. And those 52 election deniers that they've been funding include many who support legislation, say it with me, that supports benefits of the fossil fuel industry. Here's some of those election deniers who have received funding from Koch. Let's look at first Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. He's often a staunch ally of fossil fuel interests. He received $20,000 from Koch's PAC, a sum only matched by the corporate PAC of Capital One. Kennedy teamed up with other senators in January of 21 on a statement that claimed the 2020 election was, quote, rife with allegations of fraud and irregularities that exceed any of our lifetimes. One more, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson. He's also benefited from $4.2 million spent by AFP Action to help him in what seems to be a tight re-election race. And according to revelations at a House January 6th committee hearing in June, an aide to Johnson reportedly helped promote efforts to substitute fake electors for Trump for legitimate ones that Biden had won in the run-up to January 6th when Congress certified those election results. Now, one more piece about Ron Johnson, because he's also a supporter of the fossil fuel industry, and he's on the record as being a climate change denier. And according to Open Secrets again, he has taken $753,247 from the oil and gas industry since 2009. It's almost like if you get paid by certain groups and certain PACs that represent certain industries that want to continue making exorbitant record amounts of profit off of the backs of everyone else while they deny things like the election in order to keep certain people in office so their profits can continue, they are definitely willing to do that. Democracy be damned, how about those profits?
Yeah, of course. So I have a bunch of mainstream Democratic friends, and they saw a headline about how the Koch brothers were turning on Trump a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, guys, don't believe the hype, okay? I mean, the media loves to get you excited about that. And by the way, I read that article. It didn't say anything of the sort. That's what the headline said, but you read the article's body and it told you, oh, some of the campaigns of the anti-Trump Republicans are using a thing that Koch brothers produced. That means they're paying the Koch brothers. That doesn't mean the Koch brothers are supporting them. So my thesis was that the Koch brothers, and in this case Charles Koch, don't give a damn about democracy, and they'll support any criminal who does as they're told. You look, maybe they don't like Trump because Trump's a little out of control and he's not a good pet. Like he's he overturns the garbage when they're not home, makes a mess, probably poops on the couch, right? So they don't like that. They like good pet servants, and that's the entire rest of the Republican Party. So Are they gonna stop bribing them? Of course not. Then how would they get all the corrupt legislation that they want out of Congress and stop the legislation that they don't want? So look, here, I'm gonna give you some numbers. Ted Budd is a guy who was a House member now running for the Senate. Koch organization gave him, just in this cycle, $3.1 million. I mean, look at how the money that they throw around. Like progressives, it's so hard to raise $3.1 million. That is, oh my God, it would kill you to raise that kind of money. I mean, and the Kochs are like, oh yeah, you're gonna be a sellout bitch for us? Here's $3.1 million. Oh, you backed the revolution to destroy our democracy? Now remember though, when you go guys just officially declare yourselves fascist, remember who you're still working for, okay? You're still working for Charles Koch. So like randos, Steve Chabot in Ohio got $287,902. Kat Kamek, these are tiny little House seats, right? And they're just doing, that cat got $369,000, okay? It would take a progressive an entire cycle to raise $369,000. All these Republicans have to do is go to Charles Koch, kneel down and kiss his ass and say, I swear to God, I'll sell out the American people in a second. I don't work for Americans, I work for you, dear sir. And he goes, oh, I pardon you. I don't care about democracy, I was just joking anyway. You all get the money as long as you continue to be corrupt for me.
Yeah, and this is really one of the inherent contradictions that is a struggle within capitalism, which is ultimately at the end of the day, if you have big business interests, you have millionaires and billionaires, they're gonna wanna increase their profits regardless as to the rules of society. And this unfortunately is something that's been prevalent throughout the entire history of the United States. I mean, famously, there were a bunch of industrialists during the New Deal era that were like, no, how dare you? You can't, put in place Social Security or Medicare, anything like that, this has gone too far, who literally tried to stage a coup. They literally organized with generals to try and stage a coup. And thank God Smedley Butler came in and was like, whoa, no, and blew the whistle on that. But that's something that's sort of always been present within the United States. And this is really a continuation of that and really demonstrative of the fact that if you're going to allow people to accumulate billions of dollars, you need to put very, very strict controls on how they're allowed to use that money when it comes to things like engaging in politics, right? It feels like, this just sort of like really, really basic stuff that should be obvious, but unfortunately in the system that we have, we just allow infinite money into our political system.
Yeah, I love that Ben brought in a little bit of history there, right? Because in the old days, during the robber baron era, and this is amazing, when there was something that went wrong, and like, for example, like one of their businesses wound up having an accident and it killed people. That was a giant story. And the robber barons had to like really backpedal and try to figure out how do we play the press to make sure that people don't get really angry at us so the government takes action. What I'm telling you is it was like we had a way more of a democracy during the robber baron era. Now, the press doesn't care at all about rampant bribery, massive bribery. Look, Harry Reid a couple of times, and also the coward Democrats, also the corrupt Democrats, because Harry Reid a couple of times mentioned the Koch brothers. And I remember this is like a decade ago when he was the leader for the Democrats in the Senate. And everybody's like, whoa, that is so controversial. No, it's the bare minimum. Why wouldn't you mention that the other side is taking giant amounts of bribes? And the reason they don't mention it is because they also take bribes. So everybody was like, Harry, cool it, wow. And when he died, people are still talking about it, like, oh, brave fighter, Harry Reid. Twice mentioned the Koch brothers, twice. What a brave fighter he was, right? And look, think about the difference between Fox News and MSNBC. Fox News 24/7 ripping Democrats' faces off on things that are half the time made up, okay? But either way, they're attacking Democrats 24/7. MSNBC, I mean, they could just pulverize Republicans if they talked about the corruption. Why don't they ever talk about the corruption? Because first of all, half of their hosts are former Republicans who participated in that corruption. The other half are former corporate Democrats who also participated in that corruption. And then if they did that, they know that all of their Democratic allies would get called out. So they're like, shh. And then the New York Times, et cetera, go, hey, we don't have an agenda. We don't have an agenda. So we'll do a story once. If you're lucky, if you're super lucky, we'll do a story once. And then we're done with it. We're never gonna mention it again in the context of that same person. They have instant amnesia. They forget their own stories. In reality, they should mention every time this guy took a bribe from Charles Koch, this guy, whoever they took a bribe from, right? Instead, now his deceased brother, David Koch, just like mob bosses. And the Koch brothers originally got their fortune by robbing Native Americans. And then that's where they came up with the idea of bribing politicians. They got out of those charges because they bought corrupt sons of bitches like Bob Dole, who mainstream media loved. They loved Bob Dole. Oh, did you know that he was in World War II? That's why we're not gonna report on all of his bribes, okay? And at the end of the day, David Koch slaps at like good mob bosses, they sprinkle a little bit for the little people after they've stolen a whole bunch of money. And everybody's happy. David Koch slapped his name on the Met or whatever he did. I don't know, just for the fancy people in New York. And every time they're like, oh, I do the guy, but David Koch was really good. He's really good. I gotta watch Oprah, I'm not lying there. So David Koch, I think these populists and leftists are they're scandalous, they're rascals. The rascals, the Kochs have been very good to us.
He's just a populist, Cenk. And also, by the way, you talk about media, you talk about things that that they're not reporting on that's happening. Did you guys hear about this? My last thought on this is from The Hill. Senate Republicans voted Thursday, that's yesterday, to block consideration of a bill to promptly require organizations that spend money on elections to disclose the identities of donors who give $10,000 or more during an election cycle. We call that dark money to these PACs and these organizations and to these senators, congressmen, everyone like that. Majority Leader Schumer put this bill up in order to highlight the reliance of Republican candidates on this huge inflow of cash from dark money groups. That's what the Democrats will put forward, but have we heard about it? And we saw that 100% of Senate Republicans voted against this measure. I think it's a pretty good indication that they would like that to continue. And you have to ask yourself, why?
There are no populist Republicans. It's all a lie. All they're doing is Anna made this point and she nailed it. You'll see it in every story going forward. All the cultural wars are used by Fox News, the Koch brothers, and all the corrupt people in this country to distract and divide us. And that's the only fights you ever see in the media. Is between MSNBC and Fox News, culture wars, black, white, this, that, culture. Doesn't mean we shouldn't fight those wars because we've got to stand up for our own people. But at the same time, as we're all distracted, they're robbing the bank right behind there. And the media is their getaway car.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.